What if an unexpected missile suddenly turned the tide in a relentless conflict? Ukraine has already rattled Russia's defenses, inflicting severe damage through its long-range drone strikes. Oil refineries have been crucial targets, significantly contributing to Russia's current gasoline shortages as nearly 40% of its refining capacity is offline. But now, the situation is escalating. Russia, already reeling from these strikes, faces an even greater challenge. Enter the Flamingo missile, a powerful new weapon that Ukraine has just revealed. The announcement came from President Volodymyr Zelensky himself. On October 6, he hinted at the transition of Flamingo from an intriguing concept to a formidable weapon of warfare. In a key statement, he asserted that Ukraine is not solely relying on drones for its long-range strikes against Russia. This revelation hints at the deployment of missiles, raising the specter that Flamingo missiles are currently soaring into Russian territory. During a joint press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, Zelensky tactfully alluded to a series of social media videos that suggest a broader range of attacks. Zelensky's cryptic comments indicate a strategy of obfuscation, revealing too much could allow Russia to fortify itself against Ukraine's tactics. The mention of strikes within Russia nearly confirms that Ukraine's missile capabilities are now in play. With Western-made missiles blocked by the Pentagon, what's left for Ukraine? The answer lies in the Flamingo, which boasts a range that extends far beyond Western alternatives. In his address, Zelensky recounted that approximately 60% of Ukraine's impactful strikes are executed via unmanned systems capable of reaching targets over 930 miles away. Yet, this statistic does leave 40% of strikes unexplained, hinting even further at the possible activation of the Flamingo. Despite inquiries directed at the Ukrainian General Staff for confirmation regarding the missile's use, a clear answer remains elusive. Nonetheless, October 5 reports from The Economist reveal plausible evidence that the Flamingo may have targeted Russian oil refineries. Faster and more lethal than drones, these missiles glide just above the ground with extraordinary precision. What's most astonishing? With a warhead surpassing 1 ton, the Flamingo devastates everything in its path. The aftermath of such an explosion isn't merely theoretical. The direct casualty radius positions anyone within 78 feet firmly within danger, while structures suffer catastrophic destruction well beyond that. Understanding the Flamingo's capabilities offers a glimpse into how Ukraine melds old technology with innovative design. Using repurposed Soviet-era turbofan engines, its maker Firepoint crafts this weapon so swiftly you'd wonder if the past was the key to their future. Unlike Russia, struggling merely to expend its antique arsenal against Ukraine, Ukraine transforms its history into cutting-edge advancements. As the conflict unfolds, speculation runs rampant. Could the Flamingo be Ukraine's ultimate game-changer, striking at the heart of Russian fortifications? While ambiguity prevails, one conclusion is clear: Ukraine's resolve and ingenuity ensure a fierce new dimension in this ongoing struggle. What's next? Keep watching, as the Flamingo takes flight into an uncertain future. Imagine the roar of engines screaming across the sky as flames dance in the night. Feel the ground tremble underfoot, the acrid stench of smoke filling your nostrils. Ukraine's long-range drone attacks have crippled Russia's oil refineries, slashing its refining capacity by 40% and sparking gasoline shortages that choke the nation's war machine. But now, brace yourself for something fiercer. A new weapon, the Flamingo missile, soars into this brutal conflict. What if I told you Russia can't stop it? This game-changer flies at supersonic speeds, packing a warhead heavier than a ton, capable of turning targets into craters. Stay tuned as we unravel how Ukraine's secrecy turned the tide, and Russia faces a nightmare it never saw coming. Previously, we've seen Ukraine's drones slam Russia's border areas, but Western missiles lack the reach to strike deeper. Enter the Flamingo, its range defies limits. Yet President Zelensky kept his lips sealed after his cryptic press hints on October 6, giving no details on when or where this missile debuted. Why the silence? Ukraine fears tipping off Russia, allowing time for defenses to fortify under fire. Picture air defense batteries sprouting like thorns, shields against the unexpected. Ukraine learned painfully in 2023, When open boasts about its counteroffensive let Russia dig in with lethal traps. Quagmire sucked Ukrainian forces into bloody stalemates, tough gains came, but the dream of reclaiming lands evaporated. That bitter taste lingers, now, secrecy is armor. But Zelensky spilled some secrets. 60% of deep strikes inside Russia use unmanned systems. Some zooming over 930 miles. That leaves 40% mysterious, whispering of Flamingo's fiery role. This ambiguity fuels the flames. Journalists pressed Ukraine's general staff for confirmations, but got firm denials, no such details shared. Yet, the staff's caution mirrors Zelensky's, revealing tactics risks Russia adapting, churning out countermeasures. Loose words sink more than ships, they could clip Flamingo's wings. Still, clues leak through the cracks, hinting at Flamingo's deadly dance. Could Russia's oil heartland smell like victory soon? An October 5 Economist report stirs the pot. Credible whispers suggest Flamingo launched against refineries in relentless strikes. Unlike sluggish drones, this beast zips at speeds evading defenses, hugging the ground 50 meters high, with a huger explosive punch, 1,150 kilograms of destruction screaming toward doom. What target next feels the blast wave? While specifics evade us, an August military report points to a chilling first, not a refinery, but Crimea. Strikes on patrol boats and an FSS outpost weren't Neptune missiles, as first guessed. Satellite snaps show pulverized buildings, fires raging where weaker arms failed. The explosion's force echoes larger than drones hum, rubble scattered, air thick with charred remnants. Could this be Flamingo's shadow? Evidence mounts. Zelensky's social media nods point to unmanned tools in 60% of hits, leaving room for this missile's menace. Dive deeper into Flamingo's enigma. Ukraine divulges little, but exhibitions and insider claims sketch its terror. Range hits 3,000 kilometers, over 1,864 miles. Moscow itself within grasp, only Russia's far-flung east slips away, irrelevant to this war. Its warhead unleashes chaos. Per UN safeguard estimates, a 1,500-kilometer strike kills outright within 24 meters, about 78 feet, of razor-sharp blast. Survivors gasp, lungs shredded, eardrums bursting, as shockwaves rip through. Structures crumble, unarmored buildings obliterate within 114 feet, vibrations making homes unlivable 4 times farther. Imagine the tactile jolt, the earth ripping open. Shorten the ride, amplify the havoc. Hybrid brilliance blends Flamingo's might, Soviet-era turbofan engines repurposed for raw power, carbon fiber bodies birthed in just 6 hours. Ukraine transforms relics into cutting-edge killers, while Russia lingers, shackled to outdated heaps soon exhausted by 2026 attrition. Ponder the irony, a pretty name for a beast that could end Russia's reign. Will Moscow's domes crack under pressure, or does a hidden ace await? Stay locked in, the next twist might shatter your assumptions. Have Ukraine's secret weapon already flipped the script on Russia, turning their own heartland into a battlefield of fire and fear? Previously, 40% of Ukraine's deep strikes on Russia remain unexplained, stirring suspicions that the Flamingo missile is in play. The Key Post pressed Ukraine's general staff for confirmation on Flamingo use, but got a firm denial, no information available. Silently guarding their secrets, like Zelensky, they risk nothing, fearing Russia could devise defenses. As the old saying warns, careless talk can doom even the best plans, and stop Flamingo in its deadly flight. The refusal echoes caution across Ukraine. Why reveal tactics when Russia might already be lurking for hints? The silence speaks volumes, unveiling just enough mystery to fuel speculation. Imagine the tension in briefings, where every word weighs like a ticking bomb, and the sting of withheld truth hangs heavy in the air. Still, Zelensky's subtle nods ignite our imaginations. What's real versus what's rumor? Could this stealthy arsenal already be reshaping the war? A breakthrough emerged on October 5. The Economist sparked speculation with credible claims that Flamingo missiles have targeted Russia's oil refineries. In their piece on 2 months of relentless attacks crippling refining output, they noted eerie whispers of EFP-5 Flamingo cruise missiles in action. Faster than drones, these beasts skim mere 50 meters above the ground, soaring over 3,000 kilometers. Their 1,150-kilogram warhead, over a ton of brute force, promises annihilation, the ground shaking like thunder underfoot. Acrid smoke choking the skies. How devastating will each strike prove? The Economist stays vague on targets, only affirming Flamingo's debut. Yet, this hints at Russia's brewing crisis, refineries faltering, fuel scarcities biting deeper. Picture the chaos in fuel depots, engines sputtering in vain, operators scrambling amid the sharp bite of shortage. Is this the edge Ukraine sought, humiliating Russia's vaunted might through unseen sabotage? Deeper clues surface from an August Militang report, pinpointing what might be Flamingo's inaugural salvo, not on refineries, but Crimea. Strikes on patrol boats and an FSS outpost defied initial guesses of Neptune missiles. Instead, Ukraine unleashed Flamingos in a covert cripple launch from their coast on August 30. Missiles erupted sequentially, solid-fueled boosters roaring into the night, hurtling toward occupied shores like avenging eagles. Satellite snapshots capture the aftermath, sparking chills. Compare images before and after, the outpost's core shattered, rubble strewn like bones in a brutal storm. Flames lick the fringes, explosions leaving charred earth that reeks of charred metal and fear. Low-res visuals obscure full destruction, but evidence screams louder, damage beyond Neptune's or drone's reach. Debris scatters underfoot, heat waves distorting the air, survivors haunted by the deafening boom that echoes in their ears. Russia claims dominion over Crimea, yet Ukraine strikes without mercy. How does this island stronghold crumble under such quiet onslaught? Patrol vessels splintered. Outposts eviscerated. Does Flamingo mark Ukraine's reclaiming blow, twisting the invaders' pride into panicked retreat? Russia's humiliation deepens. What countermeasures lurk if threat grows? The evidence piles up. Zelensky's veiled references to social media clips, bouts of photographs showing obliteration from forces Ukraine hadn't wielded openly. 60% of drone strikes drive the story, but that elusive 40%, it screams Flamingo's shadow. Could Russia be blind to the rising danger, their defenses rigged against ghosts? What dark spots on the map await Flamingo's wrath next? An energy hub, a command center, Moscow itself 1,864 miles away? Ukraine breathes in the scent of revolution, old Soviet tech reborn as flame. Will Russia's reign of terror ignite a reckoning they can't escape, leaving them gasping for air? Ukraine's strikes have crippled Russia's oil industry. Gasoline shortages spread because 40% of refining capacity is offline. But hold on, a new terror looms. Have you heard the whispers? Russia thought drones were bad. Now, the Flamingo missile soars. Is Moscow shaking in its boots? In a stunning revelation, President Zelensky hinted at more than drones. During a press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof on October 6, he spoke cryptically. Videos on social media show strikes. Fragments reveal where drones hit. And where they don't. Journalists nodded, perhaps sensing Zelensky's sly wink. He confirmed missiles join the fray. Ukraine strikes deep inside Russia. Zelensky kept details hidden. Why? Russia must not prepare defenses. Ukraine learned from 2023. They hyped a counteroffensive. Months of buzz gave Russia time. Layered fortifications turned fields into traps. Ukraine advanced slowly. Not the breakthrough they dreamed. Now, silence is strategy. No warnings for the enemy. Zelensky shared numbers. Unmanned systems handle 60% of deep strikes. Some fly over 930 miles. That leaves 40% unexplained. Missiles like Flamingo could fill the gap. Ukrainian General Staff stays mum. No information at this time, they say. But hints point to Flamingo in action. Economists report strikes on oil refineries. Flamingo cruise missiles deployed. Faster than drones. Hugging the ground at 50 meters high. Range over 3,000 kilometers. Warhead of 1,150 kilograms explodes like a monster. One report claims a Crimea strike. Not Neptune missiles, as first thought. Instead, Flamingo fired from Ukrainian coast on August 30th. A Ripple launch. Solid-fueled boosters propel them, one after another, toward targets with unstoppable force. Satellite images paint a brutal picture. Before the hit, FSS outpost stood intact. After? Main building shattered. Litundles of debris scattered like fallen leaves in a storm. Fire scars the earth around it. Smoke hangs thick, acrid scent choking the air. Explosions roar louder than any drone. Neptune missiles pale in comparison. Resolution blurs full devastation. But wreckage whispers of power. Is this Flamingo's mark? Ukraine stays silent. No admissions of Crimea hits or refinery attacks. Yet evidence mounts. Photos emerge. They show heavier blows than before. Weapons beyond drones. Zelensky hints again. Social media tiles confirm unmanned systems in just 60%. So, one conclusion, Flamingo strikes Russia hard. Details remain scarce on this weapon. Ukraine guards secrets tightly. But exhibitions and claims reveal traits. Flamingo stretches 3,000 kilometers. That's 1,864 miles. Targets Moscow easily. Far East zones escape. Irrelevant to this war. Warhead over a ton heavy. Imagine the blast at 1,500 kilometers. Immediate danger in 24 meters. About 78 feet. Lungs burn from shockwaves. Eardrums rupture. Buildings crumble within 35 meters. 114 feet gone. Uninhabitable zones stretch 4 times farther. Shorter journeys mean more ruin. Ukraine blends old with new. Soviet turbofan engines repurposed. Carbon fiber body made in 6 hours. Firepoint crafts lethal rebirth. Russia clutters with old tech. Dumps them into Ukrainian fields. Running low by 2026. Why Flamingo? A deceptively gentle name for fury. Pink plumage hides razor claws. Twisting perspective, Ukraine innovates while Russia stagnates. Humiliating for the aggressor. Unprepared against rising tide. What shadow looms next? As strikes escalate, will Russia crumble? Or devise a desperate shield? Watch as Flamingo Unchained changes the game. The Flamingo missile has emerged as a game-changer in the ongoing conflict. Its name, surprisingly non-threatening, came about due to a manufacturing error that resulted in a pink hue for its first batch. But this missile is anything but soft. With a range of 1,864 miles, it can strike almost any target within Russia, except for its most eastern territories. Equipped with a warhead weighing over a ton, the destructive potential is staggering. Imagine the horrifying impact of a Flamingo blast at a distance of 1,500 kilometers. The UN's safety tool suggests it would create a lethal zone of 78 feet, ensuring immediate fatalities for anyone caught within 24 meters. Those just beyond that range face severe injuries, like lung damage and ruptured eardrums. Buildings? They're not spared either. Any structure within 114 feet would be completely obliterated, while the area surrounding the blast could become uninhabitable over 4 times that distance. The Flamingo packs a powerful punch, and the shorter the distance it has to travel, the greater the destruction. What's even more astonishing is how Ukraine has ingeniously blended old technology with modern warfare. The Flamingo's impressive design features Soviet-era turbofan engines, and its carbon fiber body can be manufactured in just 6 hours. This resourcefulness starkly contrasts Russia's reliance on outdated weaponry, which often leads to their destruction on the battlefield. As Russia depletes its arsenal, reports suggest it could run out by 2026. So, as the name Flamingo echoes through the corridors of military intelligence, one must wonder, is the world prepared for the devastating consequences of what this seemingly whimsical weapon can unleash? The story of the Flamingo missile continues to unfold, raising questions about tactics, technology, and the future of warfare. What will happen next, and how will the balance of power shift in this volatile landscape? In an unexpected twist in the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, a new weapon has emerged that challenges the balance of power. With devastating drone strikes already causing significant damage to Russian oil refineries, Ukraine has unleashed a missile shrouded in mystery and dread, the Flamingo. But what makes this missile so daunting, and why has it caught the world's attention? As Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, hinted during a press conference, the Flamingo missile is not just an abstract concept, it has become a reality. This piece of advanced weaponry, capable of reaching targets over 1,800 miles away, threatens to disrupt the very supply lines that sustain Russian military efforts. Imagine the anxiety in the Kremlin as they grapple with the consequences of a weapon that can cover immense distances while flying just 50 meters above the ground to avoid radar detection. Zelensky's comments, made alongside Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, hinted at the missile's capabilities without revealing too much. Drones are just the beginning, he suggested, leaving allies and adversaries alike speculating about its full potential. Is the Flamingo already targeting vital Russian infrastructure? Furthermore, this missile carries an astonishing 1-ton warhead, which, when unleashed, generates catastrophic devastation. When it strikes a target, it can obliterate buildings and inflict severe casualties within a vast radius. Touching on the operational secrecy surrounding its deployment, Zelensky made it clear that any indication of its use could prompt Russia to fortify its defenses, preventing further successful strikes. Reports from credible sources like The Economist have confirmed its use against Russian oil facilities, hinting at the Flamingo's initial strikes. However, precise details remain elusive. A striking revelation surfaces from a military report focusing on a possible Flamingo strike in Crimea, suggesting Ukraine isn't just focusing on oil reserves but is actively targeting Russian military outposts. Could this weapon radically shift the war's dynamics? Additionally, comparisons to Western missiles like the Tomahawk reveal that the Flamingo offers distinct advantages. It is cheaper to produce, costing only a quarter of a Tomahawk, yet delivers devastating payloads over longer distances. The missile's design incorporates old Soviet technology merged with innovative manufacturing techniques, making it a formidable addition to Ukraine's arsenal. Is this a game-changer that could redefine the conflict? As whispers circulate about its capabilities, including the ability to evade air defenses by changing vectors mid-flight, the Flamingo is more than just a weapon, it embodies Ukraine's resilient spirit and determination. The stage is set for a new chapter in this gripping saga. As the world watches with bated breath, one must wonder, how will Russia respond to this unexpected escalation, and what consequences could it unleash? The stakes have never been higher, and the suspense is palpable. In the gripping theater of modern warfare, a new chapter has emerged, one that could tilt the balance of power dramatically. Ukraine's long-range drone strikes have already dealt a serious blow to Russia, particularly within the realm of fuel refinement, leaving Moscow grappling with shortages. Recent reports hint at something far more disturbing on the horizon: Ukraine's clandestine launch of the Flamingo missile, a game-changer in the ongoing conflict. Emerging from the shadows, President Volodymyr Zelensky recently hinted at these new missiles striking deep within Russian territory, an announcement that sent shockwaves through military circles. On October 6, during a press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, Zelensky cryptically indicated that Ukraine's arsenal extends beyond drones, igniting widespread speculation about the Flamingo missile system's capabilities. What exactly could this missile accomplish? The potential is staggering. Imagine a missile that travels faster than the eye can see and strikes with the force of a freight train, leaving devastation in its wake. Unofficial reports suggest that Flamingo missiles may already be targeting Russian oil refineries, dealing crippling blows to their fuel supply chain. This revelation raises a haunting question: if Ukraine has these abilities now, what else do they have up their sleeve? Further complicating the narrative, there are whispers that the Flamingo artillery might have even struck Belgorod, not just Crimea. While Ukraine remains tight-lipped on these claims, The consistent pattern of strategic strikes suggests they are leveraging every advantage. Just how far can this missile extend its reach? With an operational range exceeding 3,000 kilometers, the Flamingo could threaten the very heart of Russia's military apparatus. Yet, it's not just technology that's at play here. Former CIA Director General David Petraeus has voiced his concerns, heralding Ukraine's ingenuity as a formidable force on the battlefield. If produced in substantial quantities, these missiles could redefine engagement methods and strategies entirely. But here lies the crux: how many can Ukraine build? The answer is entwined with funding and support. Zelensky has articulated bold aspirations for Ukraine's defense industry, aiming for a production capacity that could soar to $35 billion by 2026. For this vision to materialize, partnerships across the globe are essential. Agreements are already being formed to establish export platforms in Europe, the US, and the Middle East, creating a lifeline that could ensure a steady influx of resources. The ominous prospect of a well-funded defense industry coupled with state-of-the-art weaponry poses significant questions for Russia's military future. One wonders what preparations the Kremlin is undertaking in response. Will they bolster their defenses against this emerging threat, or will they underestimate the Flamingo's capabilities? As the situation continues to unfold, the narrative of this conflict thickens, and more secrets, hidden beneath layers of strategy and warfare, are yet to be revealed. The Flamingo missile represents not just a leap in technology but a pivotal moment that could redefine the war's trajectory. What will the repercussions be? Only time will tell as both sides brace for the next chapter in this evolving saga. Ukraine's innovative Flamingo missile is striking fear into Russia, crippling refineries, and beyond. This new weapon, with its vast range and devastating power, promises to escalate the conflict, potentially flooding global markets with cheaper alternatives while safeguarding Europe's defenses. Imagine the boom of explosions echoing across Russia's oil fields, the acrid smell of burning diesel choking the air, and piles of shattered concrete underfoot. Could this bizarrely named missile be the spark that ignites Russia's downfall? You wouldn't think a Flamingo would bring such terror to the battlefield, but Zelensky's sly hints suggest otherwise. As reports swirl, what's really fueling this fiery menace? Ukraine isn't just arming itself anymore, it's turning defense funds into gold mines, reshaping global power. Zelensky recently hinted at export platforms blooming in Europe, the United States, and the Middle East. These deals, set to launch by year's end, will channel steady cash flows back into Ukraine's economy, transforming it from a war-torn spender to a potential exporter. Picture factories humming with new equipment, workers' hands dusty from assembling missiles that once flew only for survival. Wouldn't you feel the thrill of turning defense into dominance? But hold on, what if Russia strikes back with its own desperate gambits? Building on Zelensky's promise of economic shifts, the Flamingo isn't just a weapon, it's a cash cow in the making. No longer is Ukraine crafting missiles solely for conflict, now, surplus production could pour profits into its coffers. Experts like Lauren Thompson from Forbes have long warned of Western shortages in precision munitions. Ukraine's Flamingo, hitting targets across 1864 miles, offers an affordable alternative at a tenth the cost of European rivals like the Storm Shadow. With daily output goals soaring to 7 under Firepoint's expanded facilities, annual production might hit 2,555 units for about $1.27 billion. Feel the gritty sound of oil-soaked grit as refineries crumble. What cheap firepower could drown out Russia's roars? Yet, looming large, how might Moscow's crumbling economy twist this tale against Ukraine? Expanding from that production surge, precision might fade to irrelevance as volume reigns supreme. America's arsenal dazzles with tech, but its reservoirs of long-range guided bombs could evaporate in weeks of intense battle, much like a sandcastle washing away in a tide. Ukraine's Flamingo, blending recycled Soviet turbofans with swift carbon fiber hulls, ready in just 6 hours, delivers a 1,150-kilogram punch. That's over a ton of explosive force, leveling structures within a 114-foot radius. The ground rattles, eardrums burst at 78 feet, and lungs burn from shrapnel wind. Could this unstoppable wave of destruction humiliate Russia into retreat? Imagine Zelensky's smile as strikes claim Crimea and more, but what unforeseen counter from the Kremlin could flip the script? Can you imagine a world where the mighty arsenal of the United States, stuffed with cutting-edge weaponry, stumbles not from lack of power, but sheer shortage in numbers? Picture the deafening roar of jet engines buzzing overhead, the acrid stench of gunpowder lingering in the air, yet in just weeks of a major conflict, those stockpiles could vanish like smoke. That's the chilling reality Lauren Thompson from Forbes hammered home last year. The United States boasts the pinnacle of military tech, but at what cost? Those precision-guided missiles that soar like eagles are so expensive to make that the Pentagon's reserves might evaporate faster than you can say Chairman Mao. Experts warn that in a showdown with China, those long-range beauties would be depleted in mere weeks. So, what's the West doing about it? Desperately hunting for a game-changer, a weapon that marries rapid assembly, easy targeting, and recycled parts for dirt-cheap scalability. And guess what? Ukraine's Flamingo missile is the golden ticket. With its turbojet engines humming softly restored from forgotten Soviet relics, and a fuselage of sleek carbon fiber spun up in just 6 swift hours, the Flamingo delivers brutal efficiency. It combines new tricks with old bones, turning surplus into slaughter. This is why the West is practically showering Ukraine with cash to crank out these beasts by the battalion. Russia gets it, they're sweating bullets. More Flamingos mean Ukraine's not just poking holes in their defenses, they're obliterating key hubs, leaving craters where once stood vital command posts and supply lines. Feel the ground tremble underfoot, the dust choking the air as explosions rip through fortified bunkers? That's the horror Russia dreads. Their refining strikes already lampooned their thin air defenses guarding treasure troves like oil fields. Russia can't let Ukraine amass flamingos in droves, so they're striking early, choking the snake at its head. On September 4th, reports from PvP World unveiled Russia's ruthless gambit, a midnight assault on Kalush, Ukraine's heart of hidden industries. Waves of drones and missiles descended like a relentless storm, pummeling the Kalush industrial park where whispers say flamingos were forged. Buildings erupted in flames, the night sky aglow with orange fury, the crackle of fires echoing through smoldering ruins. Was it a direct hit on the missile's birthplace? Russia's mum on confirmation, and Ukraine's not spilling secrets. But this savage act screams Russia's terror. Flamingo threatens to crush their grip on Ukraine forever. When will the next blow fall in this shadowy arms race? As memories flood back of Kaliningrad's fortified cliffs, the cold Baltic wind whipping across missile silos, seals slamming shut with metallic clangs, will Russia's prized exclave become the next target, or is the Flamingo's maiden strike even wilder than we think? What if a seemingly playful weapon could turn the tide of a war? In a dramatic twist, Ukraine has taken the fight to Russia with a revolutionary missile known as the Flamingo. Amid dwindling resources and a struggling military presence, Russia finds itself grappling with significant damage to its infrastructure, especially in its oil refining sector. Over the last couple of months, Ukraine's long-range drone strikes have caused turmoil, crippling approximately 40% of Russia's gas refining capabilities. But the situation is about to become even direr for the Kremlin. On October 6, hints dropped by President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested that Ukraine had evolved its offensive strategy. Not only had drones become integral to their attacks, but missiles, specifically the Flamingo, were now part of their arsenal. As rumors swirl around the power and capability of this missile, the implications become clearer. Could this be the game-changer in the conflict? Zelensky cryptically referenced ongoing strikes during a press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, lightheartedly alluding to the social media fragments showcasing where the drones were predominantly deployed. This subtle indication signaled a crucial point: Ukraine is hitting targets deep within Russia, raising questions on how the Flamingo, a missile capable of covering over 1,860 miles, plays into this equation. Even as the details remain shrouded in secrecy, evidence suggests the Flamingo's operational readiness. Reports assert that Western-made missiles were previously restricted, yet the Flamingo, with its vast range and destructive capacity, seems to have slipped under the radar of international scrutiny. Zelensky's reticence signals a strategic lesson learned from previous missteps. This time, Ukraine is not giving Russia the chance to prepare. The stakes rise higher as Ukraine continues to strike strategically while keeping its enemies guessing. Notably, a recent article from The Economist suggests that Flamingo missiles may have already targeted Russian oil refineries. These missiles, designed for speed and precision, soar low to the ground, raising alarms with their capability of packing a devastating punch thanks to a warhead weighing over a ton. The Kremlin's efforts to downplay the seriousness of Ukraine's advancements only highlight its growing insecurity. As they scramble to maintain control over pivotal territories, like Kaliningrad, the reality is that Moscow is aware of the threat posed by the Flamingo. The Kremlin, emboldened by its rhetoric, insists that the West has conspired against it, with figures such as Sergei Lavrov inflating fears and promoting animosity. Yet, what if Lavrov's threats are nothing more than the noise of a panicking regime? His assertions that NATO has declared war seem increasingly hollow as Russia's resources dwindle. In a cruel twist of fate, it is the internally fractured Kremlin that faces an uncertain future, while Ukraine's innovations redefine its form of resistance. As the Flamingo glides through the sky, one thing is becoming starkly clear: Russia's facade of security is fading. Can the Kremlin withstand the barrage of this new reality? Only time will tell as the battlefield evolves dramatically, with every strike echoing the desperate cries of a regime clinging to its power. The real question remains: who will be left standing when the dust settles? As the geopolitical tension intensifies, voices echo across the international stage, and none louder than the words of Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister. At the recent G20 meeting, Lavrov proclaimed that any nation supporting Ukraine has effectively declared war on Russia. This narrative paints the West as the aggressor, while he portrays Moscow as a beleaguered victim surrounded by enemies. But is this portrayal rooted in reality, or is it a desperate diversion from their own failings? Lavrov's rhetoric echoed through the chambers of the United Nations, creating a cacophony of alarmist claims. He argued that NATO, the European Union, and the United Nations are not just against Russia, they are in direct conflict. It's a narrative that feeds into Russia's long-standing strategy of victimhood, a tactic articulated by political analyst Artem Dikarev. He describes it as a frantic effort to depict Russia as the underdog, engaging in a struggle against seemingly insatiable forces. It's smoke and mirrors, hiding deeper insecurities. Fast forward to September 2025, and the situation surrounding the Kaliningrad exclave illustrates this perilous mindset. This region, a critical strategic outpost for Russia, has become a symbol of perceived isolation and vulnerability. Behind Lavrov's proclamations of strength lies a growing anxiety, an acknowledgement that the walls are closing in. Dikarev notes that Lavrov's comments are not just idle threats, they reflect the Kremlin's fear that the narrative of a relentless foe may not hold up against the stark reality of their own crumbling defenses. As Lavrov leaps from one international stage to another, repeating claims of victimization and conspiracies, it raises a question: is this merely bluster, or does it reveal deeper, unsettling truths about Russia's actual state? The Kremlin's efforts to project power and resilience seem increasingly frail against the backdrop of mounting sanctions and international backlash. The deception grows more transparent, yet Lavrov and his cohorts press on, desperate to maintain their grip on the narrative. Amidst this tumult, a sense of irony looms. As Russia positions itself against NATO and Western nations, it overlooks a bitter truth: the invasion and ongoing aggression towards Ukraine initiated this cycle of hostility. While Lavrov portrays Russia as encircled, the reality is that the Kremlin's actions have built the very barriers it now laments. Is this a strategic miscalculation, or a reflection of a government steeped in denial? Wars are fought not only on the battlefield but also in the arenas of public perception. The Kremlin's need to brand itself as the eternal victim obscures the aggression rooted deeply in its history. Scrutinizing Lavrov's statements reveals a paradox. The more Soviet-era strength he claims, the clearer it becomes that Russia fears exposure of its vulnerabilities. As his words hang in the air, one must ponder, what truths lie beneath the surface of political bravado? And will the Kremlin's narrative hold when faced with the unrelenting reality of its past actions? An unsettling thought emerges: what happens when desperation collides with reality? The world watches as the story unfolds, wondering if the flames of false narratives will eventually extinguish under the weight of truth. The Kremlin's game of divination continues, but the stakes have never been higher, or more treacherous. In a striking revelation, the simmering tensions between Ukraine and Russia have escalated, with Ukraine unleashing a formidable new weapon, the Flamingo missile. As the dust settles from recent long-range drone strikes that have already crippled Russia's oil refineries, hampering its gasoline supplies, this new development looms ominously over the Kremlin. Ukraine's capabilities are evolving rapidly, leaving Russia scrambling to adapt. On October 6, President Volodymyr Zelensky hinted at this powerful new weapon during a press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof. While the world speculated about Ukraine's use of drones, Zelensky subtly teased the transformative Flamingo missiles now striking at Russia's vulnerabilities. The implications are staggering. If these missiles are in play, what might be next? In a chilling atmosphere of uncertainty, rumors of the Flamingo's deployment swirl, although specific details remain tightly under wraps. The Ukrainian military is determined not to provide Russia any warning about potential strikes. This strategic silence is rooted in lessons learned from earlier counteroffensive attempts, where too much information allowed Russia to fortify its defenses. Interestingly, it's reported that 60% of Ukraine's precision strikes now employ unmanned systems. This revelation only adds fuel to the fire of speculation surrounding the Flamingo's presence on the battlefield. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian General Staff remains coy, refraining from confirming or denying the missile's usage, upholding a veil of mystery that Delhi can exploit. Meanwhile, the indications of the Flamingo's impact are starting to surface. Reputable sources suggest that the missile may have struck Russian oil refineries. Its capabilities are chilling, flying at dangerously low altitudes and with a range exceeding 3,000 kilometers. The Flamingo is designed to evade radar and create devastation upon impact. Its warhead, weighing in at over a ton, hints at catastrophic consequences for its targets. Further investigations reveal a more formidable history for the Flamingo. Ukrainian forces previously utilized it in August against targets in Crimea, leading to significant destruction. Reports indicate that a series of launches drew back the curtain on a new frontier in warfare, a methodical and innovative approach, repurposing Soviet technology into a modern weapon of war. Now, with the Flamingo ready for action, Ukraine seems poised to redefine its engagement with Russia, taking the battle directly to its heart. As the world watches, one question lingers: will this new breed of missile shift the momentum of conflict? The answer lies not just in Ukraine's strategy, but also in Russia's frantic attempts to counter it. In a world increasingly defined by information warfare, it's evident that the narratives shaping public opinion are just as crucial as military tactics. Do you sense the palpable tension? As the political landscape shifts, might there be unforeseen consequences on both sides? Keep your eyes peeled, the Flamingo is in the air, and its story is far from over. In our last glimpse, we saw how Russia's iron grip on information stifles dissenting voices, leaving the average citizen tethered to government's twisted tails via platforms like Telegram. Now, expose this, only a desperate minority chases the truth through oppositional channels. What lurks beneath this facade of loyalty? Can you feel the chilling grip of propaganda strangling free thought? Dive deeper into this psychological warfare. Imagine the stale scent of sweat-soaked fear in dimly lit rooms, where ordinary Russians cling to Kremlin fictions like a lifeline. They're not just misguided, they clasp the hand of falsehood willingly, marching down a thorny path lined with illusions. The touch of that deceptive comfort numbs the sting of reality. Now, picture Kaliningrad, that isolated speck of Russian soil hemmed in by Europe, a fortress crumbling under the weight of lies. What's Russia's nightmare here? Their narrative, crafted for the easily duped mainland masses, crumbles against the shrewd minds who see through it. The elite know smart folks won't swallow poison stories. So, they've zeroed in on the blind followers, using glossy tales to bludgeon dissent. Aimed squarely at the populace itself. Consider Foreign Minister Lavrov's desperate pleas. He must sell starvation from sanctions, the hollow boom of battlefield losses, the rancid decay of a hemorrhaging economy. All spun as noble martyrs' acts. Because NATO lurks, he claims. The Kremlin craves blind faith in this poison, and it sticks on the mainland's pliable clay. But Kaliningrad? That's a crackling current of skepticism. A barrier of free-flowing truth from Poland and Lithuania. Why might Russia lose its Baltic crown jewel? By fabricating enemies in NATO and the EU, they're alienating a people who navigate cross-border breezes daily. The fresher air of international news competes with Moscow's fog. Touch the pulse here, independent views seep in, eroding loyalty. This crack might fracture Putin's grasp on the exclave entirely. Stay tuned for how isolation fuels rebellion. Tease your thoughts. Will Kaliningrad revolt, shattering Russia's European dreams? Let's pivot to the broader crisis gripping the Kremlin. Their obsessive grievance? NATO's sprawl across continents in recent decades. A Europe-wide humiliation unfolding. But here's the twist, Russia's hysteria isn't rooted in truth. Expert Dykharov shreds it, NATO didn't crave bear-baiting from Brussels. Expansion erupted because every neighbor eyed Moscow's brutal history and whispered, not a chance. The jolt of distrust sparked alliances, real defenses against aggression. Granted, Russia spots a real trend, NATO swells. From 19 members under early Putin, bulges to dozens now. Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Albania, Croatia, Montenegro, North Macedonia. Each addition a slap of rejection. Hear the echo of resentment, feel Russia's wounded pride festering. What's the hidden motive in this global snub? Are they projecting guilt for their own overreaches? The scent of isolation grows sharper, whispering chaos ahead. Twist alert, this alliance cataclysm isn't just borders shifting. It mirrors Russia's crumbling narrative in Kaliningrad. If neighbors flee their shadow, how long before the exclave does too? Sensory overload, the acrid fume of sanctions bites deeper, the thump of distant strikes rattles nerves. Can Russia mend this rift before the walls cave? Prepare for the fallout, control slips, alliances fracture. What shocking revelation next could humiliate the elite's grip? Hold on tight, the divide widens. Lavrov's warning that the EU and NATO buildup in the Baltic is a ploy for control rings hollow. Remember, nearly every Baltic state belongs to NATO. Kaliningrad stands as Russia's sole foothold there. It's all smoke and mirrors, not genuine strength. What if Russia's arrogant posturing has backfired spectacularly, turning its prized exclave into a sitting duck for NATO's eyes? Imagine the cold sweat of Kremlin leaders, the acrid stench of failure as centuries-old defenses crumble under the weight of their own misdeeds. Is this the moment when one misguided gamble shatters an entire empire? Lavrov brushes aside a stark reality. These military escalations, and NATO's steady growth, stem from Russia's enormous threats to Europe. Kaliningrad amplifies that menace day by day. This isn't Europe banding together for some wild invasion. It's NATO and the EU arming up to wrest Kaliningrad from Putin if he dares escalate into a full-blown continental clash. His actions telegraph that intent. They're not the aggressors here. They're shrewd strategists. Russia's own deeds have left Kaliningrad exposed. Utterly encircled. Desperately isolated. In today's high-tech wars, its bases could vanish in a blink. Striking before Moscow even grasps the danger. The whirl of drones high above, the distant roar of missiles approaching. Lavrov spins tales of imminent peril. But admit it, NATO looms as a clear hazard to Kaliningrad. Just not the invasion he peddles. No unprovoked strikes will come. Unless Russia provokes them. Directly. For now, Russia festers in the chaos it created. NATO's moves encircling Kaliningrad instill terror in Moscow. They deepen Russia's fracture from its exclave. Actions that humiliate the Kremlin and reveal its hollow bravado. Is this the unexpected twist, Russia's own fury painting a bullseye on its head? Feel the gritty fear, the chill winds whipping through exposed coasts, as NATO's shadow lengthens. Can Kaliningrad survive Putin's recklessness? What crippling blow awaits when the lights go out? Bringing us back from NATO's subtle siege on Kaliningrad, where Russia's aggression has trapped its outpost in a web of vulnerability. Did you know crunching underfoot, those fortified islands bristling with troops, could spell Russia's Baltic nightmare? The taste of salt air mixes with the bitter tang of impending loss, as Poland and Baltic states erect impregnable barriers. Yet shockingly, energy cuts might deal the deepest wound. Russia faces energy exile soon. Recent buzz reveals the Baltic's grid divorce from Moscow's lines. No bomb for Putin, who bleeds funds from dwindling tributes. But Kaliningrad suffers too. It depends on that Baltic grid for every spark of power. When switch-offs hit, Kaliningrad blacks out right along. Neighboring states pivot to alternatives. Kaliningrad? Stranded. No escape, no plan. Lavrov's every outburst reeks of desperation. Screaming vulnerability that Russia dares not admit. His words echo like cracks in a crumbling facade, revealing an empire teetering on the edge. What if this complacent stewing turns to outright chaos? The Kremlin's reign over Kaliningrad hangs by a thread, fraying in the Baltic storms. Imagine the mighty Russian bear cornered in its own backyard, writhing in panic, as whispers of NATO's shadow loom larger and larger. In the previous episode, we explored how Kaliningrad, the exclave Russia clings to like a lifeline, relies on the Baltic grid for power. What if the Baltics flip the switch? Kaliningrad plunges into darkness. The Baltics have backups. Kaliningrad? Nothing. Lavrov's bold words mask pure vulnerability. Now, shifting gears, what if Russia's bluster is masking something deeper? Twist, it's not invasion fears driving this, it's the sting of humiliation. Every NATO jab pierces Russia's fragile ego, like a dagger in the soft underbelly. Dykharov hits it on the head. These threats aren't just strategic moves. They're personal slaps to Putin's authority. Why do they hurt so much? Because if Kaliningrad wobbles, Russia looks weak. Putin looks weak. Feel the cold sweat, the rapid heartbeat, the stench of fear in the Kremlin's halls. Rhetorical question, could ego be Russia's Achilles heel? Listen to the shock, paranoia oozing from Putin himself. Take Chris Donahue, commander of U.S. Army Europe and Africa. Back in July, he dropped truth bombs. With tensions skyrocketing, Donahue declared NATO could snatch Kaliningrad faster than anyone imagines, if needed. Those words? A punch to the gut for the Kremlin. Russia's threats fade into embarrassing echoes, empty bluffs no one outside believes. But this? It's no bluff. It's cold fact. Putin's grip slips, exposing Russia's tenuous hold. Paranoia simmers, like a boiling pot, ready to explode. Cliffhanger, but what's Putin's ultimate monument to this dread? In the last revelation, NATO threats etched embarrassment into Russia's soul, doing more than provoke, they humiliated Putin deeply. His words reek of weakness, not strength. Know the stench of defeat? It's acrid, like charred flesh in the air. Twist, paranoia isn't just seeping, it's gushing out. What monument screams Putin's terror louder than anything? A colossal radar monstrosity, rising in Kaliningrad. News erupted mid-August. Satellite spies captured it, a massive circular antenna array, kilometers from Poland's border. Circular disposed antenna array, that's the tech term. This behemoth? Meant to scream, Russia sees NATO coming. We dissected it in our August video, dig into that to understand its reach. But here's the rub. Rhetorical question, is this vigilance, or pure blindness to reality? Feel the crunch of gravel under boots, the whir of construction drones, as Russia pours concrete paranoia. The array sways in the wind, a twisted symbol of insecurity. Yet another desperate claw for control. Cliffhanger, what twist hides in Putin's paranoia palace? Wrapping up the Kremlin's humiliating bluster, we see Kaliningrad exposed, power hanging by a thread. Baltics ready to pull the plug. Twist, U.S. Commander Donahue unshackled the truth, NATO could seize it shockingly fast. Russian threats crumble like dust. Paranoia grips Putin. Now, the crescendo, a giant radar installation, all-seeing eye or smokescreen? Located 25 kilometers from Poland, this circular antenna array screams vigilance. We detailed its purpose in August. It's Russia's frantic build, yet another futile shield. But explore the sting, why dedicate resources here? Feel the echo of drills, the metallic tang of fear. Rhetorical question, does this beacon expose more weakness? Beyond biting the bullet on threats, Russia pours into defenses knowing they're fragile. This radar? Supposed counterpart to NATO's gaze. Yet, it reminds everyone, eyes everywhere don't hide cracks. Cliffhanger, but what unexpected geopolitical shift looms next? Imagine the tension crackling in the air as shadows dance across the geopolitical chessboard. In a world where drones and missiles reign supreme, Ukraine is no longer just defending, it's striking back with determination. Recent intelligence reveals that Ukraine's long-range drone attacks have severely crippled Russia's oil refining sectors, leaving the Kremlin grappling with gasoline shortages. But this is just the beginning, something revolutionary is in the air, something called the Flamingo missile. On October 6, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hinted at a new chapter in warfare. He slyly suggested during a joint press conference that Ukraine's arsenal now not only includes drones but also powerful new missiles, Flamingos that are poised to take flight into Russian territory. The eyes of the world turn toward Ukraine as they prepare to unveil their most lethal weapon yet. Could this Flamingo missile, with a range of over 1,800 miles, change the tide of the conflict? It's believed to exceed the destructive capabilities of anything previously seen on the battlefield. The stakes have never been higher. As Zelensky dropped tantalizing hints about this advanced weapon, urgency filled the air. Was Ukraine preparing to strike deeply into Russia's heart? Amid stern warnings to Russia not to grow complacent, Ukraine is learning from its past missteps. They can't afford to show their hand, not again. The last time they plotted a counteroffensive, Russia anticipated their moves and fortified their positions. So, with newfound caution and cunning, Ukraine now operates in the shadows, striking when least expected. Media reports suggest that the Flamingo has already been unleashed upon Russian oil refineries, an attack that could spell disaster for an already vulnerable economy. The Flamingo's capabilities are staggering, a warhead capable of unleashing 1 ton of explosive force, fast and tactically superior. It can evade conventional defenses and arrive unexpectedly. The very thought sends chills down the spine of Russian officials monitoring their borders. Yet, amidst the excitement of innovation, uncertainty looms. Ukraine's general staff remains tight-lipped, refusing to confirm any details. Is this strategic silence an indicator of their cunning? Zelensky's whispers are laced with calculated intent, designed to keep Russia guessing and on the back foot. Are these mere rumors, or is Ukraine's new missile system set to reshape the battlefield? In the last days, reports have swept through the channels that confirm the Flamingo has achieved its goal near Crimea, shattering Russian patrol boats and threatening their control over the region. Yet, the true scope of devastation remains hidden in the fog of war. What other surprises await? As world powers observe, the Flamingo missile stands at the ready, carrying with it the weight of a nation's hopes and fears. What will be the outcome when these missiles soar across borders? How will history remember the moment Ukraine transformed from the defensive into the offensive, reclaiming their agency against an adversary they once feared? Only time will unveil the true impact of these fiery winged wonders as they take to the skies. Will they mark a glorious resurgence or serve as a brief flash before the storm? The world watches in awe, breath held, waiting for the sky to ignite with fate's trajectory. In a surprising turn of events, residents of the exclave of Kaliningrad have expressed their desire for independence from Russian control. This revelation exposes deep-rooted insecurities within Russia concerning its grip on the territory. Kaliningrad, isolated yet distinctly European, is caught in the geopolitical chess game that Russia plays against its Western neighbors. The people here see themselves less as Russian citizens and more as European, echoing sentiments that challenge the Kremlin's narrative. Within the confines of Kaliningrad, life resembles that of neighboring Poland and Lithuania more than it does its parent nation. The local residents cross borders for work and education, fostering ties that starkly contrast the sense of isolation imposed by Moscow. This stark reality leaves many Kaliningraders yearning for a future that diverges from Russian dominance, a future centered on European integration rather than being a mere tool in Russia's strategic ambitions. In July 2023, an unofficial online referendum revealed this brewing desire for freedom. Conducted amidst Russia's tight grip on information flow, the referendum attracted nearly 100,000 participants, roughly one-fifth of Kaliningrad's population. The question posed was straightforward: should Kaliningrad remain under Russian control or strive for independence? The response was overwhelming. A staggering 72.1% voted in favor of independence. This striking statistic signals a major shift in sentiment, reflecting a quiet but determined rejection of Moscow's influence. The veiled aspirations of Kaliningrad's residents pose a significant threat to Russia's territorial integrity. With anxieties over NATO's intentions and Lavrov's rhetoric hanging in the air, the Kremlin must grapple with the inconvenient truth: the people of Kaliningrad are ready to cast off the chains of control and embrace their European identity, igniting a potential crisis that could reshape the political landscape in the region. Could it be that the fate of this exclave lies not in the hands of distant policymakers but within those of its own citizens? As dissatisfaction simmers, the Kremlin might soon face an unthinkable reality, one where Kaliningrad seeks to break free. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the implications of this growing movement and explore the voices calling for change, challenging the long-standing narrative enforced by a distant power. In the wake of tightened sanctions against Russia following its invasion of Ukraine, cunning tactics were needed to keep the flow of funds for the war. The nation turned to a shadow fleet, ships that disguise their origins, making it challenging to track them and stop their illicit activities. This covert operation has been crucial for maintaining Russia's revenue, particularly as it grapples with enormous financial losses. However, this hidden network is now facing a critical threat. Denmark has unveiled a strategic plan designed to dismantle this shadow fleet without resorting to military force. Instead of deploying fighter jets or launching missiles, Denmark is set to enhance its inspections of vessels in the vital Seagen Red anchorage, a major transit point in the Baltic Sea. This hub sees around 60,000 ships annually, providing ample opportunity for inspections that could expose Russia's strategies. The Danish authorities will focus on inspecting older and non-compliant vessels frequently associated with the shadow fleet. These ships often lack necessary certifications and insurance, making them less resilient against the heightened scrutiny. With increased inspections of waste management practices, fuel compliance, and scrubber discharge, Denmark is prepared to thwart the passage of these ghostly vessels. As Denmark intensifies its watchful eye, the consequences of these actions could be dire for the Kremlin. The risks of detection are mounting, potentially leading to a significant disruption of the financial lifeline that fuels Russia's military efforts. With every surge in inspections, the shadow fleet's once secure passage starts to unravel. What's at stake here? How will Russia adapt to such challenges? With the Baltic Sea's lifeline under siege, the shadows may soon fade, threatening to expose the weakness of a regime reliant on deceit. Can Denmark's proactive approach genuinely cut into the heart of this operation and cripple Russia's war funding? The answer lies in the unfolding sequence of events, awaiting revelation in the churning waters of the Baltic. In an extraordinary turn of events, Ukraine has wielded its arsenal in the ongoing conflict with Russia, unleashing devastating long-range drone strikes that have crippled vital oil refineries. The impacts are staggering, with reports indicating that Russia's gasoline supply is dwindling, a consequence of nearly 40% of its refining capacity being shut down in recent months. As if that weren't enough, a new weapon has entered the fray, and its name sends chills down spines: enter the Flamingo missile. Revealed by President Volodymyr Zelensky, the Flamingo missile marks a significant escalation in the conflict. On October 6, Zelensky hinted at more than just drone strikes targeting Russia. he suggested that missiles are now part of Ukraine's tactical arsenal. He tantalizingly stated, "Based on recent hits, I think people can understand from social media fragments where drones are being used and where they are not," suggesting that the Flamingo is indeed in action, striking targets within Russia's borders. During a joint press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, the atmosphere was palpable with an air of anticipation. Zelensky's phrasing was deliberate, aiming to keep Russia on edge, devoid of any notion of what Ukraine might do next. This tactic leverages lessons learned from Ukraine's previous counteroffensive efforts, where an overly transparent strategy allowed Russia to solidify its defenses. As intelligence from Zelensky hinted at, approximately 60% of Ukraine's long-range assaults are now executed using unmanned systems, capable of reaching targets over 930 miles away. The remaining 40%? That's where suspicions about the Flamingo grow ever stronger. Yet, when approached for confirmation, the Ukrainian General Staff remained tight-lipped, reaffirming the age-old adage, "Loose lips sink ships." Despite the secrecy, reports are surfacing that lend credibility to the Flamingo's operational status. An October 5 report from The Economist noted credible evidence that these missiles have been deployed against Russia's oil refineries. Capable of soaring just 50 meters above the ground and boasting a range of over 3,000 kilometers, the Flamingo missile packs a destructive punch with a warhead weighing over a ton. Imagine the inferno unleashed upon impact, devastation at a scale both horrifying and magnificent. Flashback to a quiet summer night, the air thick with tension, as whispers of military channels crackled with excitement. Technicians and strategists huddled together, surrounded by blueprints strewn across their makeshift table, eyes alight with ingenuity. The Flamingo was conceived, a fusion of antiquated technology with modern precision, destined to alter the course of warfare. But what happens next? As murmurs of the Flamingo's effectiveness circulate, the clock is ticking. Can the missile's successfully elusive nature remain hidden from Russian countermeasures? The world watches, holding its breath, anticipating a new chapter in this tumultuous saga. In an age defined by both technological advancement and dire environmental concerns, an ominous shadow looms over the maritime landscape, one that's barely whispered about yet harbors a dangerous secret. A substantial shadow fleet has emerged, growing by about 30 ships each month. These vessels are not just aging, they are over 15 years old and in a state of disrepair, operating under flags of convenience to obscure their ownership. Even more alarming, many are navigating the seas without proper insurance, evading detection by turning off their AIS, automatic identification system, and engaging in risky ship-to-ship transfers in international waters. But what does this really signify? The average lifespan of an oil tanker ranges between 20 to 25 years. As reported by Vox in March 2024, reputable tanker operators tend to retire their ships after merely 15 years due to maintenance demands. Yet, for Russia's shadow fleet, the age of a tanker seems moot. The Kremlin seizes these forsaken vessels, flawed but floating, as long as they remain seaworthy, heralding a wave of maritime negligence. However, while Vladimir Putin may disregard the aging status of his oil tankers, the repercussions ripple outward. An older ship with deteriorating components increases the likelihood of catastrophic environmental hazards. Imagine the peril: a rusted tanker, laden with gallons of oil, succumbs mid-journey and ruptures, spilling its contents into the pristine Baltic Sea. The potential for disaster is staggering, as the repercussions of an oil leak could devastate marine ecosystems. Concerns about the environmental impact of these shadow fleet vessels are not new. Bloomberg's March 2023 examination of the Turbo, the 26-year-old tanker devoid of a complete inspection since 2017, paints a grim picture. The vessel, operating without the industry-standard insurance, was a ticking time bomb. It begs the question, how many other aging tankers are silently sailing the seas, posing similar threats? The situation is dire, yet few seem willing to confront the reality of this maritime crisis. As the shadow fleet expands, we must ask ourselves, how long until a disaster forces us to reckon with the consequences of neglect and greed? The alarming truth lurks beneath the waves. and we can only hope that it isn't too late to steer a course toward accountability and reform before the ocean claims its due. In a shocking revelation, a renowned oil tanker, the Turbo, now 26 years old, continues to operate despite major safety violations. Bloomberg reported that this vessel hasn't undergone a full inspection since 2017, and it carries outdated insurance. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. What if it was a ticking time bomb in the ocean? In March 2023, a report highlighted the dire conditions surrounding aging tankers like the Turbo. While they should have long been retired, Putin's regime continues to deploy these dilapidated ships, ignoring the vast economic implications of their upkeep. Inspections, which traditionally occur every 5 years, can cost millions. Yet, rather than invest in safety, Russia has chosen a dangerously reckless path. The grim reality is starting to surface. TVP World revealed on October 6 that several of Russia's aging Shadow Fleet vessels are already leaking oil and causing environmental havoc. Although these leaks haven't reached catastrophic levels yet, they signal a complete disregard for environmental safety. How long until one of these ships becomes the catalyst for a major spill? Signs indicate that Putin's strategy is to march on, using outdated ships until they break down completely, an unsettling gamble with catastrophic potential. The European Union is keenly aware of this problematic trend. Under the new fuel regulation framework, there are strict mandates to cut down emissions from vessels operating in its waters. Starting in 2025, emissions must decline progressively, beginning at 2%. This regulation aims to solidify environmental responsibility on the water. But what happens when a Shadow Fleet vessel disregards these rules? As these ancient ships continue to navigate European waters, the risks multiply. Every oil slick left behind tells a story of negligence and environmental peril. As tension rises, one must ponder, is the EU ready to confront this rapidly deteriorating situation, or will they wait for a disaster before taking decisive action? The clock is ticking. The world watches and waits. In a world where the very skies become battlegrounds, Ukraine has taken a giant leap in its struggle against Russian forces. A new chapter unfolds as Ukraine's drone and missile capabilities advance, leaving Russia reeling from long-range strikes that have crippled its oil refinery infrastructure. Picture the chaos. 40% of Russia's refining capacity is now offline, creating gasoline shortages that echo through its cities. But just when things couldn't seem worse, a powerful weapon emerges from the shadows, the Flamingo missile. President Volodymyr Zelensky's mysterious hints signal that Ukraine is no longer just relying on drones for its long-range operations. Missiles are part of the equation too. During an October 6 press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, a sly reference to recent videos shared online raised eyebrows. Zelensky implied, with a wink, that people could glean critical information from social media about where drones are flying and where new, advanced missiles might strike. Could the Flamingo missile, designed for speed and precision, be soaring through the air, targeting vital Russian sites? As shadows deepen over the Baltic, rumors swirl that the Flamingo missile has made its debut against Russian oil refineries. This isn't just speculation. Credible sources have linked the weapon to devastating strikes. The Flamingo, boasting a striking range of over 3,000 kilometers and carrying a staggering warhead, represents a new era of warfare. The Economist reports that this missile flies just above the ground, making it virtually undetectable until it's too late. The potential impact of a Flamingo strike is catastrophic, capable of obliterating structures and leaving a lethal aftermath of destruction. Imagine a blast so powerful it can decimate buildings and spread shockwaves for miles. But the strategic brilliance doesn't stop there. Ukraine has learned lessons from its past missteps, vowing to keep its plans under wraps. It can't afford to let Russia anticipate its moves after a counteroffensive in 2023 failed to produce the expected results. With up to 60% of strikes now attributed to unmanned systems, the airwaves hum with tension. Yet, speculations on using the Flamingo remain unconfirmed, drawing intrigue from military analysts and foreign watchers alike. What's more, the Flamingo missile showcases Ukraine's ingenuity. By utilizing repurposed Soviet-era technology, the country breathes new life into its arsenal. This tactical shift highlights how Russia's own aging fleet is fraught with limitations. With its shadow fleet straining under international scrutiny and the tightening grip of EU regulations on emissions, Russia's maritime strength hangs by a thread. Denmark's rigorous inspections act as a countermeasure, confounding Russia's attempts to navigate the Baltic with vessels that have hidden ties to its military operations. But with all these ships lingering under the watchful gaze of NATO nations, Russia's options are dwindling. The passing of ships must go through choke points controlled by Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. It's a risky gambit for Putin. Every obstruction and every inspection could tip the scales further against Russia, rendering its shadow fleet almost impotent. As each day dawns, the stakes rise, and the urgency of the situation becomes starkly palpable. Will Ukraine's Flamingo missile turn the tide in its favor, striking fear deep within Russia's ranks? Imagining the unfolding drama evokes a sense of thrill. The sound of engines roaring, the scent of tension in the air, it's a chess game played in the skies, with every move captured by the eyes of the world. But for now, the mystery of the Flamingo remains. The question lingers: how effectively will Ukraine employ its new weapon against an already faltering Russia? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the war game has irrevocably changed, and the world watches with bated breath. In a stunning turn of events, Ukraine has unleashed a new weapon in its fight against Russia, the Flamingo missile. This missile, a significant advancement from prior weaponry, has already begun to wreak havoc on Russian oil refineries. With 40% of Russia's refining capacity knocked offline, the country now faces critical gasoline shortages. How did it come to this? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that Ukraine is not only relying on drones for long-range strikes but also deploying missiles that make their way deep into Russian territory. Can you imagine a missile that can travel over 1,860 miles with a warhead weighing more than a ton? This powerful new weapon is designed to pack a punch unlike any Ukraine has used before. The emergence of the Flamingo missile comes just as Ukraine is learning from its past mistakes. In 2023, its plans were often too transparent, allowing Russia to prepare. This time, however, Zelensky is keeping the details under wraps. Why? Because any leak could give Russia the opportunity to fortify defenses. It's critical for Ukraine to maintain the element of surprise. Recent intelligence has suggested that these missiles have already been used against key targets in Russia. Although Ukraine's officials remain tight-lipped, the circumstantial evidence is mounting. Just how much damage could Flamingo wreak? The speed and low-altitude flight of this missile allows it to evade radar, increasing the likelihood of successful strikes. Imagine the sheer force of an explosion that is capable of obliterating everything in a 114-foot radius. Reports indicate that prior strikes suspected to have used Flamingo resulted in catastrophic damage to military outposts. What could the implications be if this weapon continues to see action? In addition to its devastating capabilities, the Flamingo embodies Ukraine's innovative spirit, repurposing old technology to create something far more lethal. The Kremlin, in contrast, struggles to keep its aging arsenal operational. However, dangers loom as the Ukrainian front continues to evolve. While shadowy fleets transport essential materials for Russia's war, sanctions from Western nations are tightening. Will these measures be enough to cripple Russia's economy and its war efforts? As both sides innovate and adapt, the stakes couldn't be higher, and the world watches with bated breath. What will Ukraine's Flamingo missile do next? Is it the game changer that will tip the scales in favor of Ukraine, or does Russia have a trick up its sleeve? The unfolding drama leaves us on the edge of our seats, waiting to see who will emerge victorious in this high-stakes confrontation. In a world teetering on the edge of conflict, an unexpected twist has emerged from the icy waters surrounding Denmark. While the European Union intensifies its sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet, Denmark has decided to take matters into its own hands. The nation has initiated stringent inspections that could change the game. Imagine a seemingly peaceful Baltic Sea now transformed into a zone of tension and unexpected confrontation. What has driven Denmark to bolster its maritime defenses, you ask? Recent provocations by Russia, ships sailing ominously close, warships pointedly aiming weaponry at Danish vessels, and GPS jamming operations, paint a chilling picture of tension. The Danish Defence Intelligence Service, led by Thomas Ornkel, disclosed unsettling news just days before Denmark's bold announcement. A Russian warship had anchored menacingly in Danish waters for an entire week. Ornkel described these developments as Russia's unconventional tactics to assert dominance without plunging into full-blown conflict. The mere thought of it sends shivers down the spine. How does one prepare for an adversary who thrives on ambiguity? This unprecedented move by Denmark raises a critical question. Can a nation truly shield itself from the unpredictable maneuvers of a shadow fleet, especially when caught in the crosshairs of a larger geopolitical struggle? As these tensions evolve, each sighting of a suspicious vessel becomes a heartbeat of anxiety. The weight of history looms large, leaving one to wonder how far Denmark will go to protect its seas and challenge Russia's brazen tactics. Now, as the waters churn with uncertainty, the world watches. Will this defensive strategy manage to neutralize Russia's shadowy ambitions? Or will it only escalate the situation further, pulling Denmark into a deeper conflict than anyone anticipated? As we navigate these turbulent waters, the answer might be hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to resurface. One thing is for sure, the stakes are higher than ever, and the game is just beginning. Imagine the Baltic Sea shrouded in fog, the salty tang of seawater clinging to the air, the distant rumble of ship engines vibrating through the waves. What if a small nation dared to hit back against a giant like Russia, turning the tables in a game of hidden threats? Denmark is flexing its long-standing right to inspect ships, squeezing Russia's shadow fleet like a vice grip on vulnerable nerves. By enhancing these checks, Copenhagen undermines the Kremlin's naval maneuvers, crippling their efficiency without firing a shot. Sanctions are meant to weaken militaries, aren't they? Now, Denmark taps into that spirit, tackling a peculiar Russian headache head-on. Can you feel the tension building, the unspoken duel underway? But Denmark's strategy doesn't stop at inspections. Picture naval vessels cutting through choppy waters, the clang of metal on metal echoing during drills. Amidst the icy gusts and splashes of salt water against hulls, traditional methods blend with innovation. These heightened patrols form a broader pushback, a mosaic of responses warning Russia not to underestimate its opponents. Preparedness shines through in exercises like Northern Coast, where Denmark joined 14 nations in September. Sending a frigate and mine clearance ships, they rehearsed tactical coastal warfare, safeguarding passage for all. The sights and sounds of coordinated maneuvers, the blaring horns, the synchronized turns, signal to Putin that overplaying his hand risks escalation. What if Russia blinks first, humbled by this unyielding front? June brought another layer, deploying Sally drones into the turbulent depths. These crafted by a Californian firm, mimic sleek sailing boats but pulse with real power. Laden with sensors, cameras, and radars fused with artificial intelligence, they paint intricate pictures of maritime activity, sharper than satellites alone. The gentle sway on waves hides technological brilliance, gathering intelligence that pierces the veil. These drones could expose more shadow fleet vessels, those elusive shadows slipping through the sea. The moist breeze carries whispers of strategy, the hum of surveillance engines hinting at uncovered secrets. Denmark's gamble grows bolder, yet questions linger. Will Russia adapt, or crack under this unexpected assault? The hum of approaching ships fades into the horizon, unresolved. Whose shadow will lengthen next? Low whispers danced through the air as the world held its breath, sensing a shift in the winds of warfare. Ukraine had long perfected the art of striking back at its aggressor, and now, a remarkable new weapon had emerged from the shadows, the Flamingo missile. This unusual name belied its deadly purpose, and the stakes were about to soar higher than ever. Let's rewind. For months, Ukraine had utilized long-range drone strikes to inflict serious damage on Russia, particularly targeting its oil refineries. But a shocking revelation surfaced. Along with drones, missiles were now part of Ukraine's arsenal. Rumors swirled around Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's cryptic comments during a press conference, suggesting that these Flamingo missiles weren't just a concept anymore, they were operational. Darkness cloaked this revelation, amplifying the uncertainty about where and when these missiles might strike next. Is that the sound of impending doom? It seems so. The Flamingo missile boasts a staggering range of over 1,800 miles and delivers colossal destruction thanks to its warhead weighing over 1 ton. It could devastate strategic targets deep within Russia, even reaching Moscow itself. As Zelensky hinted at the use of Flamingo missiles during the press conference, the repercussions were immediate. Fear rippled through Russian ranks, knowing a potent new threat loomed closer than ever. Curiosity piqued. Where had these missiles been deployed? Cryptic social media posts hinted at strikes on Russian oil refineries, but there was a more tantalizing clue. A report surfaced of an attack on Crimea that had initially been attributed to Ukraine's Neptune missiles. However, closer inspection revealed that it was the Flamingo missiles that truly delivered the blow, exposing a Russian outpost to devastating effects. Was this just the beginning? As the narrative unfolded, the mystery tightened its grip. Ukraine possessed secrets, carefully veiling details about the Flamingo missiles' true capabilities. The more one dug into this enigma, the more they uncovered. Built from repurposed Soviet-era technology and modern innovative design, every piece of the Flamingo introduced a remarkable blend of old and new. Russia, meanwhile, was seemingly running on empty, sending its outdated arsenal into conflict, stripped of might before it even left the ground. But what of the unseen battles looming on the horizon, battles where shadows are cast longer than missiles? Denmark, embroiled in its own set of strategic moves, was also preparing for the unthinkable. Reports indicated the establishment of a fortified military presence on Bornholm Island. With 1,000 soldiers deployed to this crucial point, their sights were set on neutralizing threats emerging from Russia's shadow fleet. This vigilant stance came under international scrutiny, revealing how every action was intricately woven into the larger tapestry of NATO's strategy. Would this newfound vigilance be enough to stem the tide? As the Baltic Sea echoed with the sounds of whispers and the maneuvering of forces, one could only ponder how such developments would shift the balance of power yet again. A question persisted: would Ukraine's Flamingo missile deliver a fatal blow to the Kremlin's ambitions, or would it usher in an era of unexpected strife? The world tuned in, waiting for the next piece to fall into place in this relentless game of geopolitical chess. In the ongoing conflict that shapes our world today, a silent yet powerful weapon has emerged from the shadows: Ukraine's Flamingo missile. This new missile represents a significant escalation in military tactics and their implications for Russia. With the war reaching a critical juncture, Ukraine is capitalizing on its technological advancements to strike at the heart of Russia's energy infrastructure. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the ramifications could change the course of history. Imagine the chilling silence before the storm. Ukrainian military efforts have already inflicted severe blows to Russia, leading to crippling gasoline shortages as oil refineries become primary targets. The landscape of warfare took a sharp turn on October 6, when President Volodymyr Zelensky hinted at the existence of the Flamingo missile, a lethal advancement that could tilt the balance in Ukraine's favor. The world held its breath, wondering, what does this new weapon entail? In the heart of Kiev, during a press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, Zelensky dropped a tantalizing clue. While revealing that Ukraine is launching long-range strikes, he subtly indicated that there were new missile capabilities at play. The mood was electric. Reporters hunched forward, knowing they were on the brink of uncovering something significant. Where are these strikes taking place, they must have wondered. And could these missiles have already entered Russian territory? A shadow played across Zelensky's eyes as he spoke, knowing full well the dangers of revealing too much. After all, the lessons learned from previous military operations weigh heavily on him. In a prior counteroffensive, Ukraine's openness led to missed opportunities. This time, secrecy reigns. Striking without warning, the Flamingo could wreak havoc before Russia even has the chance to react. But what exactly makes the Flamingo so formidable? Sources point to a range of over 3,000 kilometers, sufficient to target nearly any strategic location in Russia. Coupled with a devastating warhead weighing more than a ton, this new missile packs a punch that could obliterate anything in its vicinity. As the news spread, the question loomed larger: how many lives could this devastating weapon take with a single strike? Circumstantial evidence began trickling in, suggesting that the Flamingo had already seen action against Russia's oil refineries. The Economist noted credible reports of its devastating potential in recent months. Imagine the murmur of disbelief as military analysts dissected the implications. Were these whispers of destruction born from the Flamingo? In a groundbreaking report from August, the Flamingo missile reportedly targeted Russian patrol boats in Crimea, marking a potential first in Ukraine's innovative offensive strategy. Satellite images hinted at severe destruction, what looked like the remnants of an assault that resonated far beyond the battlefield. It was becoming clearer: Ukraine's gallant arsenal was proving more effective than anticipated. But still, the tales of the Flamingo remained shrouded in mystery, with both Zelensky and military strategists withholding confirmation of prior strikes. Every unanswered question only adds fuel to the speculative fire. What else does Ukraine have hidden in its arsenal? As discussions of its use increase, so too does the anxiety in the Kremlin, a fear that could potentially cripple Russian resolve. In this intricate game of cat and mouse, one truth remains apparent: time is running out for Russia. As the conflict unfolds, the narrative crafted by Vladimir Putin of a glorious campaign drips further into absurdity. Leaked intelligence reveals staggering Russian casualties, over 1 million troops injured or killed, and the heart-wrenching toll is not just measured in numbers but in shattered lives and broken communities. These realities clash starkly against the backdrop of Putin's pompous assertions, revealing the grim truth: the war is unraveling Russia's military might. With each passing day, as Ukraine leverages advanced technology like the Flamingo, Russia's desperation could escalate to unthinkable heights. As we stare into the tumultuous sea of shifting fortifications and strategies, the stakes are more significant than territory; they are about the very course of history itself. Will the Flamingo missile become a symbol of new hope for Ukraine, or will it ignite an even darker chapter in this ongoing conflict? The answer lies somewhere in the evolving battlefield of the spiraling crisis. The world watches, breath held, as it waits for the next move in this dangerous game. What unfolds next could change everything we thought we knew about power, war, and survival. In 2025, as the shadow of war looms heavily over Europe, Russia finds itself in an increasingly desperate situation. The conflict with Ukraine has morphed into a relentless struggle, one that has already claimed staggering casualties. Reports from the British Ministry of Defence suggest a grim tally: roughly 200,000 losses have beset Russia since the start of the year. Each day brings an average of 1,250 souls lost to the battleground. As the year marches onward, it's impossible to foresee the ultimate toll as Russian leadership adheres to their reckless strategies, sacrificing lives in a misguided belief that sheer numbers will ensure victory. The narrative surrounding casualties in this war often relies on Western intelligence and Ukrainian sources. Meanwhile, Russia opts for silence, shrouding the true extent of its losses in secrecy. However, whispers of leaked information have emerged, revealing insights into Russia's internal records concerning military fatalities. For the first time amid this prolonged conflict, files have surfaced, dissecting the army's toll from January 1 to September 1, 2025. These documents, unveiled by a Ukrainian initiative known as I Want to Live, were acquired using shrouded methods, perhaps involving insiders disenchanted with the ongoing conflict. This initiative, managed by Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence, aims to provide a safe passage for Russian soldiers who seek to abandon the fight. Since its inception in 2022, the project has reportedly received over 26,000 calls and attracted more than 48 million visits to its website. The leaked documents, a spreadsheet-like assemblage of cold, hard data, burst forth with chilling implications. Their headers signal a catalogue of devastation detailing military losses, laying bare the grim reality of a nation plunged into the depths of warfare. The stark contrast between a society attempting to mask its losses and the stark light brought forth by leaked records raises pressing questions. What will it take for the leadership to acknowledge the catastrophic results of their strategy? As the eerie silence on Russian state television persists, the whispers of despair echo through the ranks of soldiers forced into a relentless cycle of combat. The revelation of these figures underscores not merely a battle but a human tragedy that undulates beneath the surface of the political landscape. Looking ahead, one wonders how the dynamic of the conflict will shift. As Ukraine leverages this knowledge, will the tide turn, or will Russia's refusal to confront reality see them spiral further into oblivion? The unfolding saga is far from over, with the chilling potential to reshape the course of history traced within these documents. Imagine this. A massive, classified spreadsheet leaking out into the world, exposing the brutal cost of Russia's endless war. Over 280,000 soldiers crushed or vanished in just 8 months. Is this the tipping point where the Kremlin's reckless gamble finally shatters it, or will it escalate into something even darker for Ukraine? That shocking leak revealed a detailed table of devastation from January 1 to September 1, 2025. Page after page screamed horrors. Deaths tallied at 86,744, officers among them, prisoners twisting in the wind. Missing souls numbered 33,966, many seized as captives. Wounded fighters limped through agony, a full 158,529 marked down, with plenty of ranks lost to the chaos. Equipment? Vanished or wrecked, 13,145 units gone forever, 48,458 teetering on the edge. Feel the icy chill of that data. The stench of smoke, the echo of forgotten shouts. What dark path led here? Building on those haunting numbers, the breakdown hit like a storm. Experts pored over it, whispering truths. Column upon column laid bare the slaughter, losses in lives, limbs, spirits. Humans reduced to digits, vanishing into the fog of battle. Could no one smell the rot of hubris? The captured waited in shadows, 2,311 souls torn away, while missing ones haunted silent voids. Touched the surface clammy with dread. Artillery thundered in the distance, tasted like bitter ash on the wind. Why persist in this cycle, throwing bodies into the meat grinder? And where did it peak? Now, dig deeper into the catastrophe spotlighted by that online thread. For the first time, raw Russian stats emerged, 8 months of 2025 carnage. A jaw-dropping 281,550 men, in 243 bleak days, killed, maimed, erased. Picture the earth stained red, air thick with unheard screams. Ukraine's toll loomed too, civilians shattered by reckless barrages. Yet Russia, with vaults of steel and guns, squandered everything for scraps. Officers bled alongside grunts, no mercy in the swirl. Hear the crunch of boots in mud, feel sweat trickling like silent tears. Shameful stubbornness, hurling untrained souls against death. Twists of strategy doomed them, replacing the fallen, wave after wave. But what revelations lurked in the equipment wreckage, waiting to unravel the Kremlin's facade? Imagine Russia's war machine grinding to a halt, soldiers bleeding out on frozen fields with no one left to bury them. Is Ukraine turning the tide with a weapon that flies pink and explodes like hell unleashed? In our previous look, we exposed Russia's brutal casualty numbers from the I Want to Live thread, over 281,550 lives lost, with men endlessly recruited to fill graves dug by constant artillery roars and drone whines. The breakdown shatters bones, 86,744 dead, including officers abandoned in the mud, 33,966 missing, prisoners swallowed by the fog of war, 158,529 wounded, gasping through shattered lungs, and 2,311 captured in the dirt. Equipment? 13,145 units utterly smashed, worth billions in twisted metal, with another 48,458 limping back, scarred and useless. Why such slaughter? Front lines buzz with relentless drone swarms, artillery pounding like thunder, troops huddled in trenches, senses dulled by the stench of death. Russia's evacuation? A mockery, wounded left to rot, survival rates plunging as commanders shrug off cries, leaving only 1.3 hurt for every fallen corpse. This humiliation exposes Russia's inability to save its own, a leadership more machine than man. Ukraine's strikes have ignited a firestorm, drone attacks crippling Russia's oil refineries, slashing 40% of refining power and sparking gasoline famines across the land. Russians queue at pumps, engines sputtering in the cold dawn air, but hold on, because a far deadlier flame is poised to strike. Zelensky dropped hints on October 6, dodging questions like a fighter evading gunfire, suggesting missiles join the fray alongside drones. In a press conference with Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof, he winked at journalists in Kiev, telling them to watch social media fragments, pictures and videos of explosions that scream destruction. What else carries such range? Western missiles like ATACMS hit pause from the Pentagon, blocked by approvals in Washington, leaving Ukraine's heavy hitters grounded to border pulses. Not the Flamingo, it soars over 3,000 kilometers, humming across skies to Moscow's doorstep, packed with a 1,150 kilograms warhead, ready to shatter fortified walls. Russia's defenses? A joke crumbling under drone barrages, forced to patch defenses while air raid sirens wail futilely. Zelensky stays mum on details, where, when, to keep Russia blind rats in a maze, learning from bitter counteroffensive blunders in 2023 were hype birth traps. Months of bragging gave Russia time to bury fields and mines, turning advances into meat grinders. Now, silence is gold, Ukraine whispers tactics, letting Flamingo slip through like a ghost. Strikes hit hard, 60% drone-driven, unmanned wings whispering death over 930 miles, the rest? A mystery fueling Flamingo's rise. Officials clam up, no such information, but hints pile like autumn leaves, hinting at oil refinery blasts, lies crumbling in the wind. One twist emerges, a possible strike in Crimea? Not a refinery, but an FSS outpost, burned in August by what Militarny dubbed cripple launch from Ukrainian shores. Missiles lifted on solid-fueled boosters, howling toward targets, satellite images showing decimated buildings. Flames licking at scorched earth. No Neptune puff here, the blast etched deeper craters, fires raging hotter than any drone's kiss of fire. Economist echoes, FP5 Flamingo darts low, 50 meters above ground, 1,864 miles lethal, built from Soviet turbofan engines repurposed into carbon fiber fury in 6 production hours. Russia clings to old tech, hurling it at Ukrainian walls only to see it vaporize. By 2026, they'll run dry, attrition backfiring with hilarious irony. Warhead power? A 24-meter fatal radius, feel the eardrums bursting, lungs collapsing in shockwaves that level buildings out to 35 meters, rendering homes ghosts within 140 meters. Shorten the trip, amp the bang, Russia's cities tremble, Moscow's hardened range, Far East haunts irrelevant to this storm. Yet, Flamingo humbles the arrogant, villainy mocked as a pink name turns wolfish, preying on bear claws too slow to swipe back. Click if you've ever wondered, is Russia's collapse inevitable, or does a twist lurk in shadowed woods, ready to roar? Sources? Economist, Militarny, Zelensky's sly nods, evidence mounts like gathering thunder, Russia's humiliation complete as Flamingo's wings eclipse their false triumphs. Will this flaming fury seal the fate, or is the real shock deeper, hidden in Ukraine's arsenal? Stay locked in, what nightmare awakens next in this blood-soaked saga? In the ongoing conflict, the balance of power is shifting dramatically between Ukraine and Russia. Recent intelligence highlights that Ukraine is effectively dismantling critical components of the Russian military machine. Through strategic strikes, Ukraine has decimated significant numbers of Russian equipment, targeting tanks, artillery, radar systems, air defenses, and naval vessels. Every blow weakens Russia's offensive strength, turning the tide in this tense standoff. Recent reports paint a stark picture. The average casualties for Russia reveal a staggering loss of around 35,193 soldiers and nearly 7,700 pieces of equipment each month. This amounts to the daily loss of an entire battalion, approximately 496 soldiers killed or missing. The data is chilling, the entirety of the 7th Brigade is wiped out every month. This rate of attrition is simply unsustainable for any army. Despite these devastating figures, Russia has managed to recruit tens of thousands of new personnel each month. How? Desperate measures abound. Cash incentives lure unemployed citizens. Convicted felons are pulled from prison to fill the ranks, compelling them to fight on the front lines. Many migrants, primarily from Central Asia, are coerced into service under threats of deportation or imprisonment, as uncovered by investigative initiatives earlier this year. Even without volunteers, the Kremlin's lawmakers have introduced a bill to enable year-round conscription, erasing the previous two-term draft system. This new law grants the military virtually unlimited power to summon fresh troops from across the country at any moment. Many wonder, what will be the ultimate impact of this relentless recruitment? As Russia bolsters its forces under dire circumstances, will these strategies lead to victory, or deepen the fissures in an already stretched military? In a world where the shadow of conflict looms large, a new development threatens to disrupt the delicate balance. Ukraine has been waging a relentless battle, striking deep into enemy territory and causing significant damage to Russian infrastructure. The situation is dire for Russia, facing gasoline shortages due to the crippling effects of drone assaults that have knocked out 40% of their refining capability. But there's a storm on the horizon, one that Russia may not be ready to face, a missile that could change everything. Enter the Flamingo missile, a weapon that has emerged from mere concept to reality. The Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, recently hinted at its deployment during a press conference, leaving many to wonder if it's already soaring over Russian skies. Imagine the tension in the air, the whispers among journalists, as Zelensky shared insights that suggested Ukraine is not solely relying on drones. The notion of missiles entering the fray sent shockwaves through the room, ushering the prospect of aerial warfare into a realm of perilous uncertainty. Zelensky's cryptic clues hinted that, in a matter of moments, the Flamingo could strike at the heart of Russia. Though no specifics were disclosed, the strategy is clear: operate in secrecy and leave Russia guessing. This stealthy approach echoes lessons learned from past endeavors, where overexposure and planning gave the enemy ample opportunity to fortify defenses. Recent reports suggest that around 60% of Ukraine's long-range strikes are conducted via unmanned systems, yet the Flamingo remains shrouded in mystery. Its capabilities, however, are staggering, a range of over 3,000 kilometers. Can you fathom a missile that could reach Moscow while carrying a warhead weighing over a ton? It's a terrifying thought, one that could render cities to ashes in an instant. And as reports circulate about potential strikes on Russian oil refineries, the fear grows palpable. The Economist corroborates claims that the Flamingo is no paper tiger. Its speed and low altitude make it a lethal adversary, capable of bypassing defenses easily. The devastation left in its wake could be catastrophic, shattering the already fragile morale of the Russian forces. While the Ukrainian military is tight-lipped about operational details, speculation abounds. Could the Flamingo have already been unleashed in Crimea? There were signs of destruction far beyond what previous weapons could achieve. New information hints at a strategic strike that devastated enemy posts, an attack that might just point towards this new missile's formidable strength. The intelligence reports suggest that the Flamingo may not just be a game-changer on the battlefield but a symbol of Ukraine's evolving military ingenuity. It represents a blend of old and new technology, crafting a weapon that stands resilient against its adversaries. But as this new weapon takes flight, so too does the reality that Russia finds itself in a recruitment frenzy, attempting to bolster its ranks against the rising tide of Ukrainian resistance. A new bill aims to streamline conscription, allowing for the recruitment of fresh troops year-round. Yet, with over 280,000 new personnel brought in since the onset of 2025, the question looms: how long can this strategy sustain itself amidst dwindling resources and escalating costs? As each soldier's price tag rises, reaching an alarming average of 2 million rubles, the financial strain weighs heavily on Russia. With only so many willing souls ready to face the battlefield, the reality is stark. Can the Kremlin maintain this pace, or is it merely a band-aid solution for an ever-deepening crisis? In this high-stakes game, every move counts. Each strike, every recruitment strategy, and the emergence of powerful new weapons like the Flamingo sets the stage for a showdown that could alter the landscape of the region. The question remains, who will ultimately come out on top when the dust settles? The answers might just lie in the skies, as the Flamingo prepares to soar. Ukraine's Flamingo missiles ignite chaos deep inside Russia, crippling oil refineries and sparking fuel nightmares. Now, as the Kremlin scrambles to rebuild its shattered forces, recruitment costs soar, bleeding the war economy dry. Imagine the desperation, broken men pushed to the limit, where every new soldier costs a fortune the nation simply can't sustain. Is this the breaking point for Putin's empire, where flesh and fuel shortages grind his war machine to a halt? The price to fill Russia's thinning ranks keeps climbing higher. By year-end 2025, analysts warn it could hit 2.5 million rubles per recruit. That's a staggering jump from 1.5 million just months ago. Picture the weight of those numbers pressing down, the Kremlin's coffers cracking under the strain. Kluga lays it out plainly in his September post. At 2 million rubles each, snagging 35,000 fresh soldiers burns through 70 billion rubles up front. That's 840 billion annually, nearly a full 0.5% of Russia's entire GDP. Bump it to 2.5 million, and recruitment balloons to 0.5% of GDP. The math screams a warning, disaster looms. But this is just the surface scratch. Federal and regional bonuses cover only part of the bill. They miss payroll, benefits, and pensions, the real army budget killers. Feel the grip tighten, recruitment fees rise relentlessly. Russia replays losses from Ukraine's relentless blows, month after month. Economic storms brew on all sides. Global shifts torment Russia's economy from afar. Homegrown hurdles include looming recessions and a critical labor drought. Even Putin blinks under the pressure, cutting defense spending in 2026. Just a notch below 2025 levels per the draft budget. A reluctant nod to dodge further turmoil. Yet the truth stares back, unyielding. Shrinking budgets can't keep this grind alive forever. Ukraine's cunning drone attacks shred the foundation. Refineries, pipelines, fuel depots, they all shatter under Flamingo precision and unmanned swarms. Hear the explosions roar? Smell gasoline thick in the air, as stations shudder and prices skyrocket? Lines of cars stretch endlessly, engines idling in frustration. Motorists sit trapped, heat rising with tempers. That acrid stink of spilled fuel clings to the road, a tangible reminder of Russia's vulnerability. Every strike amplifies the pain, more lost warheads, more economic wounds. Prolonged agony means climbing costs for everything. Recruitment itself dies a slow death at some turning point. The Kremlin falters, unable to summon enough bodies to refill the ranks. Can you feel the tremor? Russia's mighty army, once a colossus, begins to fracture, piece by crumbling piece. And there's more brewing in the shadows. As Flamingo flies unleashed, Russia's defenses crack wide open. What's next in this deadly dance, a twist that shatters the balance forever? As the conflict drags on, Russia's financial burden deepens, turning the gears of war into an increasingly costly machine. Recruitment efforts falter, and the once mighty Russian army appears to be on the brink of collapse. Even with over 100,000 troops in the field, they find themselves trapped, unable to breach Ukraine's fortified defenses. In a startling revelation, leaked Russian data hints that, despite significant recruitment, the Kremlin cannot achieve its objectives on the battlefield. Observers draw comparisons to the Soviet army during World War II, where vast losses did not equate to territorial gains. In a haunting reflection, the fall of 126,000 soldiers in the East Prussian offensive secured northern Poland, while today's generals witness 120,000 lives lost without the capture of Pokrovsk. This stark contrast reveals a damning truth about the current state of the Russian military. Historically, the Russian army instilled fear, especially in light of the Soviet achievements that followed the war. Foremost among these was the accumulation of military prowess, with innovations like the BMP redefining modern warfare. When Russia initially invaded Ukraine, many believed victory would swiftly follow, based on sheer size and resource advantages. However, the reality has been far from their expectations. Nearly 4 years into the conflict, Russia retains only marginal territory gained compared to March 2023. The key regions, such as Pokrovsk and Donetsk, remain elusive. For months, they have thrown everything at capturing this single city, deploying drones, tanks, and even disguising soldiers as civilians to infiltrate from within. Yet, all these tactics have yielded nothing but failure. What has gone wrong? Is it deception, the tireless resolve of Ukrainian defenses, or something deeper? As the struggle continues, the resilience of the Ukrainian forces stands unwavering, raising the question, how long can Russia sustain this war without meaningful results? The answers lie in the unfolding drama of warfare, as both sides grapple with the harsh realities of conflict. The dichotomy of numbers versus strategic failure creates a staggering juxtaposition, one that may shape not only the outcome of this war but the future of military strategy itself. As the stakes rise and the human cost escalates, the world watches with bated breath. Will the Kremlin adapt, or is it trapped in a cycle of outdated strategies? With each passing day, the tale of Ukraine versus Russia unfolds further, promising twists that could alter the course of history as we know it. The question remains, can the tides turn in this seemingly endless conflict, or has the Russian bear already begun its slow descent into irrelevance on the world stage? In a chilling turn of events, the struggle for dominance unfolds fiercely. Despite deploying over 100,000 troops, Russia faces a crushing blow in its attempts to breach Ukrainian defenses. Armed with various tactics, from drone assaults to infiltrations disguised as civilians in urban landscapes like Pokrovsk, the Russian forces repeatedly hit dead ends, watching their strategies crumble. As the relentless assault continues, Putin's troops have suffered staggering losses. The center group of forces, including the infamous 2nd and 51st Combined Arms Armies, has been decimated. Commanded by General Ramil Abadalin, the Second Army is responsible for a catastrophic toll, 15,310 soldiers lost to the brutal chaos of warfare, while another 16,260 were wounded. Meanwhile, the beleaguered 51st Army endured a harrowing fate. It inflicted 13,000 casualties on the battlefield, with 14,201 being sent back injured. Equipment losses are equally dire, a staggering 1,642 units have met their demise. And it doesn't stop there. The 1st Tank Army, part of the Western Forces, is facing its own disastrous outcomes, with 9,987 soldiers lost, another 11,411 sustaining injuries. Even elite Russian units struggle to maintain morale, reporting 2,272 paratroopers killed or missing, and 3,191 wounded. These devastating figures indicate that the remaining troops face an uphill battle against despair. Each soldier, haunted by the echoes of their fallen comrades, confronts the chilling question, will I be next? Fear is palpable, breeding a dread that pushes many to consider desperate measures. Reports have emerged of soldiers intentionally wounding themselves to escape the front lines, desperate to return to their families rather than face the potential of death. Such acts of survival signal a brewing crisis in morale, hinting at a potential exodus from the battlefield. Will the fear ripple through the ranks, causing others to consider breaking away from the fight? These haunting statistics and desperate choices shape a narrative of conflict that is shifting, with stakes higher than ever. The faltering Russian advance has not only led to losses on the battlefield but has ignited a growing sense of hopelessness among the troops. How will the psychological burden reshape the conflict? As the war rages on, the answers remain dark and uncertain. Russian troops, facing relentless losses, are resorting to desperate acts, like injuring each other, just to escape the battlefield and reunite with their families. This tactic spreads like wildfire, as the death toll climbs, and the soldiers grasp the brutal truth of their grinding war. In a chilling post from I Want to Live, a stark message warns Russia's people to steel themselves. Prepare mentally, it says, for the war's end might reveal the true horrors, numbers of dead, missing, and wounded, far worse than imagined. From the invasion's start, this grim count has shattered past 1 million. The air thickens with fear, the metallic tang of blood staining the soil, as families feel the ache of empty chairs at dinner tables. This isn't just a price, it's the ruinous cost of Putin's iron-fisted rule, chipping away at his fragile support among the masses. The cold, unescapable truth of this endless conflict stares back from every shadow, no longer something Putin can shroud in lies. As morale crumbles under the weight of elite units decimated, paratroopers falling like leaves in autumn storms, desertions swell, whispers of mutiny echo in barak halls, what will break first, Ukraine's lines, or Russia's crumbling spirit? But hold on, as the Kremlin struggles to ignite the spark of victory, a shocking twist unfolds beneath the radar. Russian forces, already stretched thin, face not just battlefield defeats, but a hidden weapon accelerating their doom. No, not just tactics evolving, but Ukraine's Flamingo missile soaring into the heart of Russia. Faster than a heartbeat, wiping out refineries in blazing fury. The roar of boosters ignites the night, carbon fiber wings slicing through icy winds at 3,000 kilometers per hour, while Soviet repurposed engines hum like revenging ghosts. Can Moscow's defenses intercept this unstoppable bird before it detonates a ton of explosive wrath, leveling structures for 114 feet in every direction, human lungs bursting under the pressure from miles away? Zelensky's cryptic nod in Kiev hints at strikes beyond drones, leaving Russia powerless, gasoline vanishing as 40% of refineries flicker out. Will Russia's oil-soaked empire rupture, exposing Putin's vulnerabilities before the world? Stay tuned, as the stakes soar higher than ever. Imagine a world where an island fortress trembles under the weight of relentless whispers from the west. Could fear-mongering alone shatter alliances and redraw maps? That's the explosive reality as Russia's diplomacy dances on the edge of collapse. In the shadows of old grudges, Kaliningrad stands as a fiery outpost, its salty sea air thick with the stench of impending conflict, while Lavrov's voice echoes like a thunderclap through misty halls. The security center paints a vivid picture, its charts unfolding like ancient scrolls revealing NATO's growth. When Vladimir Putin rose to power 2 decades ago, NATO boasted just 19 allies. Since the year 2000, around a dozen nations have joined its ranks. Think Bulgaria's rugged mountains, Romania's whispering forests, Slovakia's snow-capped peaks, Slovenia's alpine breezes, Albania's stormy shores, Croatia's sun-drenched valleys, Montenegro's jagged cliffs, and North Macedonia's historic plains. Yet the real sting bites closest to home. The 3 Baltic republics, Latvia's windswept coast, Estonia's pine-scented woods, Lithuania's amber beaches, signed on in 2004. Then came Finland and Sweden, longtime neutrals whose cool lakes now churn with purpose, joining in 2023 and 2024. Why this sudden rush? A response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, where boots on frozen ground shattered peace like glass underfoot. The Kremlin sparked this fire. Georgia's broken borders, Crimea's annexed coasts, Ukraine's scorched fields. These moves turned suspicion into steel fortifications. NATO swells not out of malice, but necessity. To shield against Moscow's shadow. And so it may grow further, threatening Kaliningrad's grip like creeping vines choking a lone tree. Putin knows it all too well. That's why he unleashes Lavrov, his voice a whip cracking through silent rooms, denying every accusation, accusing right back. The EU, he claims, schemes to attack that island bastion. Armed forces on Bornholm only tighten the noose. NATO's envoys in the Baltics encircle it. Fear drills into hearts, but is it just smoke? Will these threats ignite or fizzle? As the fog lifts, one wrong move could shatter everything. What hidden spark awaits in the Baltic gloom? In a world where conflicts shape destinies, a new player has emerged, sending ripples of anxiety through one of the most contentious regions. Ukraine has ignited a storm with its long-range assaults that have left Russia reeling, particularly targeting vital oil refineries. The fallout? Gasoline shortages have plagued Russia, as 40% of its refining capacity has gone offline in recent months. But what happens next might turn the tide even further. Imagine the scene, Ukrainian spirits rekindled as whispers spread of a terrifying new weapon, the Flamingo missile. This isn't just another weapon, it's a game-changer that has taken flight, leaving Russia scrambling to respond. On October 6, President Volodymyr Zelensky dropped the bombshell that Ukraine isn't solely relying on drones anymore. This missile is here, and it's operational, letting us know that the Flamingo could very well be soaring into Russian territory right now. Why is this important? Recent statements from Zelensky made it clear that Ukraine is tightening its grip on its strategic operations. As he spoke at a joint press conference, the tension was palpable. What does he know that we don't? He hinted at the utilization of various unmanned systems, with drones accounting for 60% of strikes. The remaining 40% remains a mystery, potentially hinting at the Flamingo's hidden power. Could this missile be the silent predator stalking Russian targets? Zelensky's words urge us to uncover the truth without revealing too much. The last thing Ukraine wants is for Russia to prepare a defense against their newfound weaponry. They've learned from their past blunders, where overexposure to their tactics allowed Russia to fortify its defenses against Ukrainian offensives. Will they repeat history, or have they solidified their strategy? Consider the implications. Reports suggest that, as they fight for their sovereignty, Ukraine has already begun deploying the Flamingo against vital assets, possibly even oil refineries in Russia. Now imagine a missile that travels 3,000 kilometers, carrying a ton of explosives. When it strikes, entire areas could be obliterated. This isn't merely devastating, it could mean the end of certain strategic infrastructures for Russia. Yet, there's no official confirmation from Ukraine about these attacks. They sit tight, letting circumstantial evidence and societal unrest do the talking. As vivid photographs circulate, the world can only speculate. Are these images of the aftermath of Flamingo strikes against critical installations, as whispers of its prowess increase? Let's unravel this mystery. The Flamingo represents a culmination of old and new technologies, mixing Soviet-era components with modern engineering. Yes, the name might sound non-threatening, but make no mistake, this missile embodies Ukraine's resurgence. Far from the limitations faced by the Russian army, which continues to bleed resources heading into 2026, this weapon symbolizes hope for Ukraine's quest to reclaim its identity. As tension mounts, one must ask, will Kaliningrad's looming struggles push it towards independence? The recent referendum revealed that an overwhelming majority stands ready to sever ties with Russia, sending echoes of defiance through the exclave. The voices of the Baltic Russians rallying against Russian authority only amplify this urgency. Could NATO merely wait until the people of Kaliningrad extract themselves from Putin's iron grip? As Russia's vulnerabilities grow, in a world full of uncertainty, the potential for monumental shifts in allegiances and power balances casts a long shadow. Will the Flamingo missile pave the way for Ukraine's freedom, or will it unleash a fury that spirals into chaos? The stakes have never been higher. In a world fraught with conflict, a new chapter has opened, one that could reshape a tense region forever. Ukraine has unleashed a tempest of long-range strikes that have sent shockwaves through Russia, primarily targeting its crucial oil refineries. These strategic assaults have resulted in gasoline shortages across the nation, with a staggering 40% of its refining capacity recently rendered inoperable. But that's just the beginning. What could come next may shift the balance entirely. Picture this, a country under fire, its spirit reignited through whispers of a formidable new weapon, the Flamingo missile. This is no ordinary armament, it is a harbinger of change, soaring above the battlefield as Russia scrambles to respond. On October 6, President Volodymyr Zelensky revealed that Ukraine has expanded its arsenal beyond drones. The Flamingo has entered the fray, making its debut over Russian territories as we speak. Why does this revelation hold such significance? Zelensky's remarks at a recent press conference hinted at a tightening operational strategy, leaving us questioning what he knows that remains veiled from the public. Drones have been responsible for 60% of Ukraine's strikes, but what lurks in the shadows of that remaining 40%? Could the Flamingo be the predator stalking its prey, waiting for the opportune moment to strike? Zelensky's cryptic hints urge us to dig deeper while revealing little to Russia, avoiding any chance to fortify defenses against this new threat. Ukraine's past missteps, where revelations allowed Russia to bolster its defenses, have instilled a sense of caution. What are the consequences of their newfound secrecy? Consider the opposing forces at play. Reports suggest Ukraine is secretly deploying the Flamingo against key targets, potentially striking oil refineries within Russia. Imagine a missile that travels 3,000 kilometers, armed with over a ton of explosives. The destructive potential? Complete annihilation of critical infrastructure, a nightmare for any nation under siege. Yet, Ukraine remains tight-lipped, allowing circumstantial evidence and unrest to stir speculation. As photos emerge, showcasing the aftermath of various attacks, the question looms, are these images remnants of Flamingo strikes hitting vital installations? This intrigue pulls us deeper into the narrative. The Flamingo, blending old Soviet technology with cutting-edge modern engineering, embodies a transformation. Though its name may sound whimsical, the missile symbolizes Ukraine's resurgence, a stark contrast to Russia, which finds itself draining resources as it heads into a precarious 2026. As tensions escalate, another narrative brews on the horizon: Kaliningrad. Recent referendums reveal a populist yearning for independence from Russia, echoing defiance throughout the exclave. Could NATO stand idle as the voices of Baltic Russians rally against the Kremlin's authority? As Russia's grip loosens, the potential for seismic shifts in loyalties hangs thick in the air. Will the Flamingo missile serve as a catalyst for Ukraine's liberation, or will it unleash an uncontrollable torrent of chaos? The unfolding events present a tantalizing mystery, and as the dust settles, the stakes have never been higher. With the world watching, the fates of nations hang in the balance, and the line between victory and devastation blurs on the horizon.